Now let's begin toolpathing. As of now, I'm going to turn off some levels on here so you can see how I worked with this. All this stuff is just geometry I created. If I go to my levels, I have set those on the origin symbol, and as you can see, they are now gone. I just want to look at the profile of the 2D geometry, but I got to tell you, Mastercam does an outstanding job toolpathing solids. We'll do that for the second one so you can see the difference between the two. But this time we're just going to go to levels and turn off solids. This being an intro class to lathe programming, I want you to see the basics of it. So let's get started with toolpathing. The first thing we need to do is to show the toolpath manager over here. I'm going to lock it in by hitting this little safety pin. And as of now, we have no machine definition. At this time, we're going to do machine type, lathe, and we're going to use the lathe 2-axis slant bed machine parameters. Under your machine list, if you remember, we can choose that. So if you're using your home edition one, you can come down here and choose any one of these. But the one I'm using, again, is the lathe 2-axis slant bed, but it's not the millimeter. So it's already loaded over here. I will remove it to show it to you. So what I find is this one right here. Let's take a lathe 2-axis dash slant bed LMD lathe machining definition version 8. I'll add it and check. Now it's loaded in my machine types. Now if I go back up here to lathe, it is sitting in my area here, and I click and it gets loaded over here. The next thing I want to do is expand my properties and come in here to my tool settings and set up for the class assignment. The program number I give you, you would put that in. I'll put 6,000 in for the instructor. I'm also going to choose my material. I'm going to choose lathe library, and I'm going to choose 6061. I'll take the defaults on that. And so in our area here, we need to put our program number and choose our material through select. We'll go to the stock setup, and we'll come in here to the left spindle, make sure that's active, and we're going to add some properties to that so we can develop our stock. In the stock area here, we're going to make the OD of the material 1 inch because our final cut is at 950 thousandths. That'll work fine. The length, we're going to do 3.5 inches, and we'll leave the position along the axis at 0 here. And if we want to preview our boundary, we can see it, and you can see there's plenty of material to fit around the part. Hit enter to get out of there. We'll hit check. And from here, we will fit screen to boundary. That's important. And when I hit check, if I hit fit, it includes my boundary of my material, so I get a clear view of what I'm working with. If I unzoom it, I can unzoom it by hitting Alt F2 by 80%, or you can use some of these other zoom commands that are selected here in Mastercam. So if I do 80% again, F2, or if I make it fit, I can do that. If I wish to put a window around a target, I can come right here and say I want to see that target there. It fits perfectly. I can go back to fit, and if I right button mouse click in this area, the drawing area, I have a lot of my commands in here too, as well as fit, repaint, dynamic rotation, unzoom by 80%. They're all there, and you can see the F key that is associated to it. Okay, let's begin with toolpathing the part. The first toolpath I want you to use is called Toolpath Face. We will use face to clean off the front of the part. So face, and we will select our part. Here is our lathe part 2, start file 2000. So this is the file I'm going to work with. I'm actually going to just change this here, and we're going to call this face, and underscore rough underscore and finish, because this is what this little part of the series is going to be for this one little video clip. We will face the part. We will come over here and rough all the rest of the material and then just finish the profile and get it ready for grooving, threading, more profiling, grooving, and this, and then final part. But your whole part would probably just say lathe part 2. This is just for the video, okay? And as soon as we come into this, we're going to have a set of parameters in here that we want to set up. Tool number 1, we are going to take the default tool number 1 that's already in here. As we go on, we're going to learn how to edit these tools. And we'll work with them. And we'll study how they work and some of the parameters in it. But since we're facing, there's some basic parameters that I want to use. And the chip load that we're going to use for finishing and roughing will be the same all the way through for this basic class. So we're going to set the feed rate right now for the face command. And one thing to take a look at, you notice that when I chose the face lathe toolpath, that it didn't ask for any geometry. It's just going to know that it wants to face the front of the part at Z0 if we leave the defaults. So just a little heads up. But I want a really nice finish on that. So what I'm going to do is a feed rate of 2/1000. What's that mean? Every revolution, it will remove about a 2 thou thick chip load. And constant surface feed, we talked about it in class, where on the outside of the diameter, if it's 10 inches, no matter how fast it turns at that time, one revolution will remove a thickness of a chip about 2/1000. So the finish will be constant. The surface feed is constant as it gets to the center, and as it gets smaller, it gets faster and faster and faster, but that chip load stays constant. But anyway, we will start out in this project. We're going to do 1500 for the facing and the max. If you remember, the max is the G50. We don't want it to go over 2500. We're going to leave that at that for this testing of this part. We're going to activate coolant, turn it on, and now let's take a look at our parameters. The tool number we're going to use is tool number 1, offset number 1. It will be in the location station. That sounded funny, but at 1. Our feed rate is going to be 2/1000. Our spindle speed beginning and our max spindle speed will be 2500 and our beginning will be 1500. We activated the coolant. Now under face parameters, there's really nothing to sit here. It's going to approach itself at an entry amount of 100 thousandths and come in and do a step over if we have one, but we don't. And we're going to run all the way through, and the stock we're going to leave at 0. So we're going to be cutting at finish Z0. This must say finish Z0. If it says anything else, let's say 10 thou, it will be at a positive 10. So we want to leave that at 0. Remember, 0. And if you don't touch anything and we follow the CD or the lecture so far, it will work out for you. So as I come in here, as you can see, it created a toolpath. So let's watch that toolpath. I'm going to unzoom a little bit. I'm going to move my part over. I'm going to use the backplot selected operation so I can see it. I'm going to activate my tool display. Remember anything that's shaded? I'm going to activate my tool holder. And I'm going to go ahead and play this in. Okay. Everywhere we go, it will face all the way through. So as it comes in, it's going to face, pull back, and go back to rest. We'll hit check on that. And that looks like a good toolpath. Now that we've faced the part, now we're going to use toolpath rough, and we're going to rough the part out. It defaults to partial, so leave it alone. It's shaded. We'll select the first entity of our chain, which is the chamfer, and the last entity of our part. We'll select OK. And the tool that we use for the face, we're going to use also for the rough. It is tool number 1. Our feed rate we're going to set for roughing is going to be 10 thousandths of an inch, 0.01. The spindle speed, our initial spindle speed, we're going to start, it is at 1500 again. And our max, our G50 will be 2500. We will then turn on our coolant again. And I hope you're getting familiar with these buttons. Again, we're using constant surface feed. So no matter how many revolutions or how fast it goes, it is actually going to have a chip load of 10 thousandths of an inch. Now we're going to go into the rough parameters. This was the toolpath parameters, and we're going to choose the rough parameters, and we're going to set what we want to do is our depth of cuts. Now, the depth of cut is how much do we want to cut down? In other words, how do we want to remove this amount of material? Well, we're going to use a depth cut value of 25 thousandths of an inch. So as it goes this way, each cut will be 10 thousandths of an inch, and as it goes down on the diameter, it will be 25 thousandths of an inch. Okay. When we're done, we're going to leave 10 thousandths of an inch on the X. That would be on this plane here, and 10 thousandths on the Z, which would be any of these planes right around on this face right here. That looks like the only place it will be. What else do? We go to lead in, lead out, and we want to lead the part in. This arrow is the direction of it's going to lead in, okay? So in other words, if I tell it to go this angle, the tool will come down this way. If I tell it to go this way, the tool will want to come underneath the part to lead in. We don't want that to happen. What we're going to do is just go straight into the part here as it cuts. And we'll add a lead in distance. We'll just go on this one, say 50 thou. A little bit too much, but for a beginner, you'll get to see what it is. The lead out is important. We want to extend this lead out on this one important because of our parting tool. We want to remove it. So we're going to come in here and extend that at least 150 thou of an inch. And the direction that we lead out is away from the chuck. So as it comes to the end of the part, it's going to lead back. It's going to lead back. And we'll take that OK. And we'll hit check. And now notice that stock disable stock recognition. Let's leave that where it is at the default and watch what happens. Okay, it doesn't really need because it sees the stock, but it knows it needs to do a toolpath here. So this first toolpath, it cleans it all off. And if I zoom in on this, if we can see this, we're leaving that 10 thou on the X. And if I zoom over here, we're leaving that 10 thou if you can see the material here. Don't look at the blue, that's a toolpath, and that's where the tool actually intersects. We'll learn that more in depth in class. So we're going to fit this. And we're going to take a look at the back plot again. We'll choose all, select all operations. I'm going to unzoom. Do you guys remember the hotkey for that? Alt F2, right? I'm going to choose this button here, back plot. And now I'm going to watch it back plot. And I'm going to drag my key. There's my face. There is my first rough pad. Let's back this up just a little bit and take a look at it. Do you see that? That's our lead in. Going horizontal. We told it to go that way. And watch when it leads out, it's going to go backwards at an angle. Do you see the backward at an angle? Right there. And that means we're pulling away from the chuck, which is a good thing. We do the next one. And what are the depth of cut set to? Correct. 25 thou. And with a feed rate of 10 thousandths of an inch. Let's make this thing fit a little bit closer and watch it again up close. You can see the tool come in here. And we talked about that blue part. Let me zoom in on here. You can see, watch the edge of the tool. That's what we're cutting. So we're looking here at the intersect where these meet. And that's what this blue path is about. It is, watch. As it comes, you see it doesn't see this radius doesn't hit it, but our toolpath goes here because it sees the intersect of where these radiuses are and the way we set the tool off. So it's never going to hit. It's never going to hit like we think it was. If we watch the toolpath, we'll be fooled. And that's the next part. Now I'm going to take you one step further so we can see how we can verify and install it. But we can come over here and we can verify selected operation. This gives you a solid representation of what we're machining. And it will be good to see this at this point. And we'll hit play. We'll turn up the precision. It's going to probably go quite fast. So I'll slow it down just a little bit. These button precision, just how the quality looks up here and the speed of the tool. So it's going to come in. There's your roughing, 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 and all the way through. So when we first started this, we looked at precision and speed. We're going to play with a couple of these other buttons so you can see the difference. So I'm going to hit close that down. We're here. I'm going to save this. Right now we just completed the lathe face and lathe rough. Now we have the rough, the face done. We'll minimize this so we can keep on screen. The next toolpath we want to do is finish this off. Now if we come up here to toolpath and go to finish right below rough, it's asking us to chain. But one of the little hot buttons that we have, because we have the same chain we want to use for the rough is for the finish, we can hit L on our keyboard. What will give us our last chain? Again, L on our keyboard. From here, we're going to use the same tool again. So we use the tool for facing, roughing, and now finishing. But the finish feed rate we're going to use is 2000. So we're going to get a nice finish. The spindle speed for this part will be 1500, and the max, our G50, will be 2500, which will be a constant surface feed again, and it'll allow it to um, continue the chip load all the way through, so our finish will be constantly a 2000 chip load. Turn on our coolant. Check. And so you're getting used to these buttons and what we're doing here. There's ways to make them automatic, but it's good for you to learn. On the finish parameters, just like what we just did with the roughing, it's very simple. The stock that we're going to leave is 0 because we're going to go to finish material size, and the stock on Z will be at 0 as well. The key thing we want to look at here is lead in, lead out again. So let's set up lead in, lead out. We're going to come horizontal in. If we're going to add an extension to that, let's just say 50 thou. A lot to me, but that's okay. The lead out, we do want to lead out, and I'll explain why this is important. Because when we do the parting tool, all this material we want to rough off. So when we start the parting tool, we're starting not with a kind of a dip in our part, but a clean cut. And again, we go away from the part. Again, lead in at 50 thou, horizontally in, and arrow pointing away for roughing. We're going to choose OK, and it's going to do the toolpath. And as you can see, that extension that we put in here for the lead out, it's going to clean all this material away here, which is important because as we come in with the parting tool, if we didn't, we would have a big chunk of material right here that causes a problem. Let's verify this. This time I'm going to go straight to verification. I will select all operations. I'll hit check the verification button, and it will load it in. This time, when we saw it the first time, it was all one color. Now we're going to add color loops. So each toolpath will have its own color. I'll slow this down a little bit, and you'll start seeing it. So as it comes in, the roughing, you can see it's blue. And then we can actually see what the other tools are doing in comparison to that. So it should finish off a different color when we do the finish to show that we finished it. And there you go. There's our finished part. We can rotate it around. It's 360 degrees around. It's following the tool path. You can see it. One of the neat things I just showed you is to turn the color on. We can also touch this button right up here, stock once, and it make it translucent. So we can see our part and calibrate and see if we're right on the money. And it looks like we're doing very well with tolerances. You can see the clear out, the extension here. Very neat. If I turn it again, it'll turn it off, turn it on, show the initial stock that we started with. Make it translucent. There's our part machine. That's how much material we removed out of it. Turn that back off. You can also turn on the tool translucent or turn it off completely. And you turn off the insert, which would be kind of funny to see. Turn back on the insert. And you can see this. So when we get into mill, you'll be able to look at all this stuff here. Again, the tool is translucent. We'll keep that part there. We'll leave the initial stock on. We'll rewind it down here at the bottom. So at least you're learning how to set up this whole process of the part. And as it cuts in, the reason it doesn't show any material removing is because we don't have the initial stock. We'll make that translucent. We'll turn that off, and now it's cutting that stock away. I hope you play with some of this. This is important to get familiar with the interface. We're going to continue on. We just finished the first little section of the part. We'll minimize that. We'll save again. Always save.